Hi everyone, I'm Maria and welcome to the talk on carving your own path in product management. A little bit about me. My name is Mariya Pak. I am currently a product manager at DocuSign. I previously founded a few startups and the recent one is called STEM the Step. It's a community-based nonprofit organization in San Francisco. And we did a lot of different meetups and events, kind of TED Talk style talks. And we had to take a pause during COVID, but I'm hoping to restart it once things open up a bit more. On a personal note, I consider 4 countries as my home. I am very much interested in crypto and finance in general. And I absolutely love scuba diving. So I do that in every single place that I go to that has water. So today we'll talk about 3 main subjects on product management. And I truly believe there's no better job than product management out there. I might be very biased, but I wanted to become a PM for so long and I never looked back after that. So we'll talk about how to actually become a PM if you're not already one, how to get good at it, and how to have the most fun doing it, which is the best part. So we'll start with how to actually become a product manager. And it's the same ingredient if you're actually already a product manager, but just not feeling that great about your role, your position, maybe the company you're in. Or if you actually are not a product manager, you just want to become one. I think that the steps are pretty much similar, but you will obviously have an advantage if you're already a PM. So the best part of it is that a PM actually usually is very passionate about the product or area that they're in. But if you're not a PM, you should just choose, pick a particular industry that you would actually want to develop and go all into that as a product manager. Usually nobody is really born with any kind of PM talent. It's a very much an acquired skill. And so you do get to spend quite a lot of time building and learning about it. And you're really surrounded every single day with product initiatives and projects and everything about that specific product and area that you're working on. And so if you spend so much time on it, you might as well enjoy it. And so I think that the key ingredient is really passion, and the better and more interested and the better interested you are in it, the likelihood that you will actually be good at it are very high. And if you're not a product manager right now, if you're truly passionate about something, I believe that it will make a big difference in actually making it happen for you to become a product manager in that area. On the other hand, PM is a very challenging job, and it actually does take quite a bit of work. And it's a very also competitive position. So you have to really work hard and stand out in order to be a good one, because there's just so many people who want to become product managers. So you really need to prove that you are the one that actually deserves the role as a lot more than others. So we'll start with picking an industry or a product area that you actually feel passionate about, because that's the key. And you will spend so much time on it that you really have to be careful. You might explore a bit, but if you're already working for a company that you love, or you're working with a product that you love, or a specific area, let's say it's security, maybe like user management, something that's transferable from one product to another, it could be as niche as that, or actually as broad as an industry, because if you know already what you're gravitating towards, that's the better part, because you can actually then explore within it all the things that you could learn more. And so the next thing is actually to learn the ins and outs of that industry or product, the product area, because the more you know about it, the better your odds are of actually becoming noticed and be picked for product management. None of the product managers are actually, well, I shouldn't say none, but a lot of product managers are not actually experts in those areas. They just have to learn on the job about that. But if you are already an expert in a specific area, and then you ramp up on the product management skills, you have such a big advantage over everybody else, because a lot of PMs, what they're really missing, and that's number one thing that they should do, is learn a lot about that area. So you will have an advantage if you are already an expert, or you just take time to learn a lot more about it. So you do have to be seen as an expert in that area. But it's not enough. You also need to be immersed in the product management, because that's part of that formula, that you need to have enough skill in that specific area, but you do have to have product management experience in order to be hired. And it is a bit of a chicken and egg, but if you are already working for a company that gives you exposure to product managers, that's actually the best way to learn and build those relationships with them, to start learning about what their job is, what their processes are. And especially if you work in a position where product managers come to you for advice on, and your expertise on advising them on how to build a product in a way that will actually make users happy. And so it could be that you work in customer service, or in some kind of a training and development, or even marketing and sales. And you just actually have that exposure to what the customer wants, or this actual product that they're working on. You give them that feedback as to what the customers usually complain about or what they love. Then you have that huge advantage over even other product managers, because you already have that insight. So I really believe that making a horizontal shift from within a company into product management is the best way to make that transition. So how will that actually help you? One, it will build confidence in you, that you have that knowledge and understanding of the product and the user. And the more you know, the better your ideas will be as to what should be improved in the product or a feature, and what maybe is completely useless and needs to be removed and redone fully. And if you're within a company already that gives you exposure to product management, you will meet the right people. And the more you start learning about product management, even if your company doesn't have them, you just start going to the meetups and starting meeting other product managers. And somebody will be able to help you. There's tons of resources out there that it will allow you to actually learn the ins and outs of the product management as well. And so the more you get into it, the more people you will meet that will actually either coach you or mentor you and help you in the process. So what's the next step for you is to build relationships with product managers. And again, if that's within the company, that's even better, because if you already have those relationships with product managers, you can tell them about your desire to make this transition, or be exposed to the upper management that can actually make it happen for you. So you do need to let people in the position to help you actually know about your intentions. And it might happen naturally, of course. And I've seen that in my previous companies, where somebody who is just doing some kind of a regular, like let's say it's a loan processor, or it's some kind of a payment processor job, and they are just kind of in a daily grind, and they're doing those processes, and then they are the natural candidates to become product managers, to automate those processes and make them better. And so it could be really anything like that. Or you could be in the marketing position and you just know so much about a product and how to put kind of position it in the market. And at the same time, you understand what the customers are asking for, or prospects are asking for, and that gives you an edge to do it. And so by building those relationships with the product management and getting that exposure to them, letting them know that you want to do it, they would rather pick someone from within the company who knows so much, rather than a stranger that just has product management experience. But you do need to know how to do the job of a product manager. And so we'll talk a bit more about how to actually get good at it. So to get good at it, and this is interesting because there's so many buzzwords and so many things that product managers actually manage, and it could become pretty overwhelming, especially if you're new and you're looking from outside into it, and you say, oh my god, how can I learn all of this while also keeping up with the things that I actually need to do day to day in my job? And all of these buzzwords are actually just just definitions, and there's no clear cut and dry sort of formula on how to do any of them. You will learn them on the job. They sound a lot more scarier than they are. And different product managers pick and choose sort of what they are best at, and they might rely on other people and teams in the company to do some other things for them. So it's not that they have to do everything. They will probably dip their toes a bit in everything, but you will really learn on the job. So don't worry about all of this stuff when you're looking into it or when you're in it. You will find your own flavor in it, and really every product manager has its own style. So we'll have to pick out of that what's the actual meat, what makes the product manager really good. So let's take a look at the typical process of a product manager, and this is kind of how I define mine, where you start figuring out what the problem is, and you kind of go through the hoops and loops and as to whether or not this is actually the problem, and get the feedback from everybody. And you keep talking to so many people, and you kind of have to go back to square one quite often until you actually go ahead and ship something. And so if you look at this diagram here, the key denominator, the common denominator here is actually that you are talking to so many teams. You work with everybody and you get to get their feedback. So out of all of those things from the previous and this slide, I kind of narrowed it down to the three main things, which will go into more in depth in the next slides, but I'll just mention them now. Is that the number one thing is knowing your user. And all of that market research and all of those kind of words, they just stem from knowing who your user is. And that means who they are, what they do, and why they do it, and kind of like everything about their job. And it's important because that's who you're building the product for. So if you know your user, everything else will actually fall into place, and everything is just more like tools around how to make things better for a product. The next thing is learning the product. So that obviously applies if it's an existing product, and if you're a product manager hired for a company to work on the product and make it better. So you need to know what this product currently is capable of doing and what it cannot be doing. If the product doesn't exist, you obviously need to figure out what's out there that exists in the field. And so the more you know about the product, the more informed you are about what to build in your product. And the final piece is spending as much time with the experts in the field. And the experts are just the people that you work with. As I mentioned, they are the common denominator of the product management process. And you have to work with everybody to make sure that the actual product is shipped successfully. You're never working in isolation. And so the more time you spend with people who will help you get it out of the door, the better off you will be. And because you do have to spend so much time with everybody, you just need to be able to learn from them and understand how they think in order to actually make the delivery of the product successful. So let's go in a little bit more in depth into each of these areas. We'll start with knowing your user. And I think that the key here is just really learning how to do their job. And you could take it as deep as you want, really. But what I mean here is the better you understand what the user does and like what they actually do on a day-to-day basis, and because this is the person that you're building the product for. So the better you know their job, the more you are aligned with what they want. And so it's kind of the best way to be able to speak the same language with them, because by understanding what they do and kind of like getting aligned with them, you will build that rapport and trust with the users, and they will feel like you actually understand them and you're going to build the right thing for them. The next thing is to actually understand the top 3 things that they wish they didn't have to do. And those are the things that you can actually automate or eliminate completely from their routine, and to make sure that the product takes care of that by itself. I have an example here. I worked on a product it was a financial reconciliation process. And some of the analysts that I worked with just would say that they didn't like spending so much time on manually copying and pasting all of the transactions from all of the different sources. And so that's something that they would spend a lot of time on. And I really had to kind of like read through between the lines as to what they mean about manual copy pasting and what that actually means. Because in the product itself, we just had to make sure that we built the right connectors to all of those sources and pull them into one place so that when they log in, everything is already in there for them. And so sometimes it's not as obvious what they mean. The customers could be as specific to exactly their processes, but you're building it for, in general, the pool of users. And so each of them might actually have slightly different processes. So you really need to understand and kind of like hear what they're saying rather than just specifically following their directions. But if you can take care in your product of the things that they don't like doing, this will make your product a lot more useful to them. And the other side, it's obviously knowing the things that they actually enjoy doing in the product or in their job in general. And so the key into making the product successful is to highlight those things that they do like. And so the same example is that in my financial reconciliation processes, the users are actually, they enjoy doing investigation and seeing why some of the incoming money wouldn't match to the money that was actually outgoing, because we needed to make sure that the amounts of money that left and came in reconciled. And so that investigation was previously pretty tedious, but it was still interesting. So what we made sure is to put it in a place that they will be able to access easily, but also make that investigation a lot more rewarding. And so once they actually found the right transactions that would reconcile together, it would almost give them like that reinforcement of a nice UX with like a green check marks and saying that everything reconciled, everything's green for the day, because that gives them the satisfaction that they've done their job properly. And it's a small thing, but a lot of times when you actually build something, a small detail like that highlights what they already like about their job will make the product even more enjoyable to be used. The next part of the learning the product, obviously, if it's an existing product, you just need to know what it currently is capable of doing, what it cannot do, and if there's any workarounds on it, or what are the low-hanging fruits as to like, what could it do better? And that just customers wish that there was one little thing that it was able to do would make a huge difference. And so if you know all of these details, you will be able to prioritize whether to build a brand new feature that doesn't exist, but it's absolutely critical and has to be there. Or if there is a bug that's kind of annoying and there's this workaround that they just wouldn't rather rely on, and if you fixed it, it's actually low effort, but such a high value that you would rather prioritize that. But you wouldn't know those details until you actually learn the product. Obviously, if the product doesn't exist, then you have to do a little bit of the research into what's actually out there in the product world in general. What other products are there that are able to do it, and what are they missing, or what do they have? And that's really what the market research means, or competitive analysis. And that's just those like really buzzwords, but it's all it is. It's just understanding what's there that exists and what can you make better in your product, especially if that's what customers want, obviously. And the last piece here is spending time with the experts. As I said before, product never work in isolation. So they do need to learn as much as possible from others that they work with. And so some of the first things that come in mind is the internal teams that are either close to the customers, such as customer service or training or marketing or sales. And they're the ones who spend so much time with the customers that they would actually know so much about it. Or it's the actual internal customers who you're building the product for, especially if it's an internal product that you're trying to make better for the employees of the company you work with. So those are the people that are either already the experts themselves or the users themselves. So you definitely would need to spend a lot of time with them, or they actually spend so much time with the actual users and you may not have that much time to talk to every single customer, but they can be your best allies to give you all of the summary and basically the key takeaways that they themselves understand and learned. And you can work with them and utilize and really leverage that information to build better products. The next part is obviously technical teams. You will work a lot closer with the engineers than you think. And in order to be successful, you have to understand their world. And technical teams are your best friends, really. They're the ones that are building the product. So you really need to understand how to read into what your engineers are saying. If they're bringing up some kind of a technical debt piece that is very critical to take care of, you might want to understand what they actually mean to figure out if you should prioritize it right now or later, or if it's going to impact you immediately in the short term, in the long run, or in a medium term run, in order to figure out where it fits in your roadmap. And the more time you spend with the technical teams, the better you understand actually what are the next sets of things you should focus on, whether it's building something new or maybe researching an innovative piece of technology that you should research into whether you should put it into your product or not. And the last bucket of people is any kind of people in the field, and that could be other product managers, either within the company or outside of your company, and really see what their practices and processes are to make things more efficient. It could be people that are just in the same industry as you, and you could learn from them either in networking events or just through some kind of connections and maybe industry events about new regulations, new processes, new tasks, new rules, really anything that's coming out. The more you keep your pulse on the things, the better you're actually going to stay up to date on what are the things that you should either take care of right now or later, and be proactive in that. And so that's kind of like where product managers bring really their benefit to the company, is by having all this knowledge from all of the people that they would spend time with. So some of the ideas here on how to actually keep up with all of this is to schedule one-on-ones. And it's the best way to first go a little bit deeper into a subject and ask questions on a much deeper level where you might not be feeling comfortable asking in a bigger meeting. And one-on-ones give you that exposure to talk about a lot more like architecture and design with your technical teams, or understanding where the distribution channels are with your sales and marketing teams, or where the training falls short, or maybe where the customers complain a lot from the customer success teams. And having that one-on-one really gets you exposed to a lot of those details that you might not actually understand or see in some kind of like bigger updates or meetings. And it's really reaching out to those key people that's the key here by scheduling those one-on-ones. It's not just a chit chat, it's actually to get a lot of insight out of them. And getting feedback early and often is very relevant to the same process as well, because even through these one-on-ones, you can actually share your ideas or prototypes or notes, even thoughts on anything that you currently have captured. And getting that as early as possible, either in one-on-ones or even like other scheduled meetings, and as often as possible on a regular basis, will give you that understanding of whether what you're building or thinking about is actually correct. And because you need to spend so much time with the experts, as I call them, you talk to so many different people in the company that you will get those perspectives individually from everyone, and will be able to iterate and combine all that feedback in your mind, and then actually have like a much more holistic approach and a lot better solution for everybody that incorporates a lot of that feedback from all of the people in the field. And the last piece here is having the right people in the room, which is very much related to the previous two as well, is because you have so much connection to other people, that's the benefit you bring on the table as a product manager. Because you're not necessarily the expert in every single field that these people that are facilitating you to build it out are, but you have all of that exposure to them, and you have to go as deep as you want, or as like wide as well. But bringing all these people together in one room when they normally wouldn't actually be in touch, like maybe sales will never talk to the engineers, and so they will never get that understanding as how things are built, or how difficult it is, or what are the actual problems that different people run into. So that gives those people who would never necessarily talk to each other an ability to hear firsthand all of the challenges and all of the different ideas, and whether something's feasible or not. And so it's up to you, and it's really your responsibility to connect the key people and pull them correctly in the room at the time when it's actually important, either to get their feedback or get them exposed and just get them to talk to each other and brainstorm more things. So really up to you, but this is the key area of you being a connector in the company. And then the final third piece of agenda, which is my favorite, is so let's actually see how to have fun doing a product management, because it is a very challenging area, but I think it's so rewarding if you're doing it right. So it could sound very basic and trivial, but I really believe that 90% of your satisfaction is actually not necessarily related to whether you enjoy the area, even though that's very important. You should still enjoy it, but it's the people that you work with. And it's very, very important to get to know people that you spend so much time with. As we already looked at previously, there's so many people that you as a product manager will keep in touch with. So making sure that you actually enjoy talking to them will make you successful as well. And what makes you feel good about talking to them is to get to know those people. And so you could get to know them on a personal level through their interests. And especially these days, as we're working remotely, it's so important to get to know someone, even if it's just taking a little bit of time during these one-on-ones to ask them something personal. But you also will, as more you get to know them, you will understand what kind of style of work they prefer. Are they more visual? And would you rather build some kind of diagrams with them to understand what you're talking about? If that's the way that they connect better, you actually will enjoy working with them too, and make the communication a lot more efficient. If you understand what motivates them, you might be able to leverage that to actually get them to help you in your work, so that you can benefit them as well by having all of that feedback from them. The next piece is speaking their language. And that's really the benefit of being a product manager and being exposed to so many other jobs, is that you're able to learn a little bit of everything in the company. You're like a mini CEO of the company, and you really get to understand the whole process and the pipeline of getting the product out the door. And so in order to really be able to let the person know that you're working with, that you care about what they do, what they say, is to be able to speak the same language with them. For example, with engineers, you really want to be able to at least make an effort in understanding what is their world all about, and how can you talk to them in a way that they will understand you. Maybe it's picking up some of those technical jargons and really understanding how things work, because that's their world. And the better you are able to talk to them in the ways that they understand you, the much more trust and rapport you will build with them, which obviously makes things a lot more efficient and more fun to work with. And then the last piece here is to do stuff outside of work. Of course, if you're able to, these days it might be challenging, but I still think that it's so important to actually get to know people outside of work, even if it's during work hours, but just talking about something not work related, and really understanding what is that they're what are they sort of interested in that you might be sharing. And maybe you could schedule some kind of activity to do with them together. Maybe it's over Zoom that you can actually share that experience with them. But it's more about actually doing things rather than just knowing what they are. And I think that actually this really makes it fun. In my previous companies, we before all of this lockdown happened, we were going out quite often for happy hours and kind of like doing some sport activities together. And we bonded so much because we also had to work really late hours at times. And by actually bonding and doing something together outside just work made us a lot closer. I'm still in touch with so many of my previous coworkers. So changing things up a little bit and talking about how to actually gamifying your work, this makes the work environment a lot more fun. So one thing is product managers have so many meetings. They are like in walls of meetings, and it might be tiring. So one thing you can do is incentivizing those key meetings and like making people look forward to actually attending them, and also yourself. I have an example here. We had sprint retrospectives with the team that at one point became pretty negative. We had quite a lot of deadlines and worked late hours. So those meetings were a lot, very kind of negative and energy draining. But to make ourselves look forward to, because we actually understood the importance of it, because that's where we reflected on what things went well and what things didn't go well. We started naming our sprints after cheeses, wines, and whiskeys. And every sprint retrospective would actually bring those drinks or snacks to the room. And it made things a lot more fun and made actually people look forward to it, because it was a little break and it was much less negative going forward. It's a fun trick. Next thing is another trick to planning milestone celebrations. As you know, work never ends. And after one milestone and one product shipment, there's another stage, there's another version, another phase. And so because it's never ending, it's really hard to kind of feel motivated to do something. But if you actually plan the milestone celebrations ahead of time that are meaningful, you will not only look forward to those celebrations and actually finishing and accomplishing that, but you will feel proud, because there will be this kind of, oh yeah, we did something. That's actually an accomplishment. That's something that's worth noting. It could be as small as going on a picnic, or like a happy hour, or as big, obviously, as some kind of an event and activity. So the more frequently you do it and the more meaningful those milestones are, obviously, the more people will actually believe in what they're doing. So that was really fun. We used to go out about once every 6 weeks. That's kind of how we were able to stretch out and plan those milestones. So yeah, that was quite a lot of fun, but obviously it depends on the budget. And last piece here is that sometimes when I feel stuck and I just feel like I can't make any progress, I would just schedule a brainstorming session with the teams, and I'll bring a bunch of people into the room. And if we're actually in the physical room, obviously I will plan like a fun whiteboarding session with everyone to get all of their ideas and share what I'm stuck with, and see if like they can just throw things out at me. And sometimes the ideas actually stick, and maybe you can confirm whether your idea was actually legitimate and you just needed to have a little bit of that push through to work out all of the kinks and details around it that you felt like weren't there. Or it's something that will open up a completely new direction for you. So those sessions, you could also bring drinks. You can keep them informal if they're on Zoom. Let people bring some kind of snacks, and then just use different tools out there on the internet that make it more fun to use. And then finally, I would say that as a PM, you're really like a captain of the ship. And so you're really in control of where you're going. And you know, in the ocean and the water, there's like waves there. You go up, you go down. You sometimes feel great, sometimes it's stormy. And with time, you actually start understanding what is it that you're gravitating towards. And you can start moving towards that and leading the team into that direction. You can also start building business cases around the area that you feel passionate about, and shedding light on that area, especially if it's something that nobody else in the company would take care of. And so the more you get that exposure and the more you start taking that initiative, the leadership team will see that as you're taking initiative steps towards taking care of an area. Or it might be a transition. If you start understanding that this is where you want to go, you are in control of what you want to do. And the more you start learning about that area, the better your chances of actually getting there and being successful in that, and taking the team with you and kind of like steering the ship towards that. So never be afraid to explore and sightsee, because in product management, as I said, everything is really your own path. Nobody will tell you how to do that job. Everybody has its own style, and you really can just take and experiment and take the directions that you want and see where you end up. And so this is really it. I hope you enjoyed it. I definitely did. Thank you so much for your attention, and I hope you have a great rest of the day. Thank you.